Hello everybody, welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. You guys are so excited about DC All In. When Rocky and I were last with you, we were talking about DC All In. We played the big announcement from DC that had Scott Snyder and Joshua Williamson talking about the initiative that is All In, blown up on the YouTube channel, and a lot of people commenting, almost overwhelmingly positive. There was only one negative comment. Somebody, I guess, I sort of don't see the point of putting a negative comment on there. Like, this is going to flop. This is going to be terrible. Like, if you think that, whatever. Like, why you put it out there so you can say I told you so? Like whatever. I just deleted the comment. I'm like, we don't need that negativity in here. It could not do well. Who knows? But from everything I'm hearing and everything I've heard from creators, everybody I've talked to, they're excited, right? And one thing we know, Rocky and I have, closer to 100 years of comic reading experience between the two of us than 50, right? Like 40 years apiece, give or take. That's 80 years of collective comic book reading. And probably
Crazy.
More than that, right? Probably closer to 90, 45 years apiece of reading comics. And one thing that combined nine decades of comic reading has showed us is that when creators are having fun and they're excited about the projects that they're doing, the comics are better, the stories are better, and we as fans enjoy them more. So, again, everything that I'm hearing and reading is really fantastic. Scott Snyder, in his newsletter that's on Substack, talked a little bit more about the behind the scenes. I'm probably going to talk a little bit about that in the article that's going to accompany this on the LRM online website. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you want to go and check it out. Again, I encourage you to, you don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything. There are paid levels for Scott Snyder's Substack, but if you just want to read the newsletter, you can read it without paying any money, and I do encourage you all to do that if you're a fan of DC. So, that being said, because everybody's so excited, we're going to do something that we don't normally do, but because it's a lot of new creative teams, and because DC has officially announced the creative teams for the 3 titles that are launching the Absolute Universe, we're going to cover the solicitations today. Maybe you've seen this on social media, some being announced. Some we talked about in the other video. We talked about who was rumored to be on those titles. And I can just say, the rumors were true in this case. So, I haven't gone through all these solicitations myself yet. But we're going to go through them together. So, have you gone through and checked them out, Rocky?
I have, I have, and I've watched some of my fellow YouTubers out there comment on them, and I echo your comments that most people are generally they range from being generally content to excited about it, and I think most people are all in, and I agree with you when creators get passionate. I mean, there's a feeling in the air, at least from my I think from both our perspectives, that people are generally excited about this, and it's and the creative teams, quite frankly, that we're going to be going through. I think there's reason to be excited for this because DC has been on a lull in the last I would say 4 or 5 years, and this shows a marked return to it in terms of the big names, or some big names returning anyway, enough that I'm excited, and I think there's a reason why they're calling this All In, because DC needs to do something, and I think they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's still some huge creators out there that aren't affiliated with any big publishers. I was going through my schedule for San Diego Comic-Con, looking at all the small publishers, Magma Publishing, Mad Cave. They're putting out some really good stuff, Vault, Scout Comics. So there's no reason that a creator has to go over to Marvel or DC if they're a big name. At this point, they can go to smaller publisher. Unlike Marvel or DC, they're going to retain at least some of the rights. So if something does blow up, you have a TV show, movie, whatever, they're getting paid more. So you can kind of understand why some of the bigger names may not want to do DC stuff anymore. And specifically, 2 names come to mind that kind of made their name at Marvel, actually, and that would be Ed Brubaker and Rick Remender. And really, you could throw Jeff Johns in there as well, now that he's exclusive with his own publishing imprint company, Ghost Machine. I mean, those guys drove traffic to these big 2, and they don't anymore because, frankly, why should they? Why should they use their best ideas when they're not going to own it? So you can kind of understand why it's shifted. But again, like Rocky said, there's some big names on these books, and I think reason to be excited. So we're going to go through this DC Connect issue 51, which is basically DC's own version of Previews magazine, if you will. First book in there, Absolute Power. It's the conclusion. You know, it's the same creative team that we know was on the book. Mark Waid handling the writing duties. Dan Mora's on art. And basically it just talks about, hey, the end is going to be shocking. What comes after? Justice is reborn. It says that last line there. Take that to mean the Justice League's coming back. We know the Justice League is coming back. Mark Waid, when he was on our show, said the Justice League was coming back, or intimated. You know, he didn't say those exact words, but, you know, he said the Justice League that Superman puts together, so we know it's coming back. And in the DC All-In announcement, both Joshua Williamson and Scott Snyder have mentioned when Darkseid confronts the Justice League. Well, in order for Darkseid to confront the Justice League has to be back. So let me ask you, Rocky, any thoughts on the makeup of that team? You want it to be classic? You want some new characters? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for the Justice League,
yeah.
I mean, I prefer it to be classic. I mean, you know, usually the big seven. Although, frankly, I'm easy. We just need the Justice League back because of the Titans were an embarrassment. And quite frankly, you know, just give me some. You know, we're gonna have Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. We're gonna have those in Flash, Green Lantern.
No Detroit League.
No Detroit League, no. I don't think that they're going along those lines. But
Vibe and Gypsy.
Yeah, no, I've no Vixen, no nothing. I mean, no, just we got to go. You got to go A-list or at least a solid B plus. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we need to enough of this You're coming out of Absolute Power, and quite frankly, you want to compete with probably what's going to be some pretty stellar storytelling over in the Absolute DC universe. So the mainstream GLA has to be firing on all cylinders, and you need your A-listers for that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Not that I don't love those quirky leagues. I love the Detroit era, but here's the thing: when you're starting over with a new number one, and this will be a new number one, no doubt about that. Yeah, you got to start with the most recognizable, the iconic heroes. You know, you want to throw a young hero on there, you know, Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, or something like that. That's okay, but you got to have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Green Lantern. You just got to have those. Martian Manhunter. I like Martian Manhunter. I like him on the Justice League. I understand he's not as iconic. I never really liked the idea of Cyborg on the team. To me, he's a Titan. But if you want to throw him on there, you know, I guess. But that core, right? The Trinity, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Aquaman. Got to have those, I think.
Got him.
So we'll see. All right. Up next, we have the DC All-In Special. We're going to go through this real fast because we know already. It's a flip book. Snyder, Williamson writing it together. One side of the flip book, art by Daniel Sampere, the Superman perspective of the story. The other side with Russ Craig art with Darkseid's perspective. Gorgeous cover by Daniel Sampere there that you see. But there's also some variants. Wes Craig does a cover. Rafa Sandoval does a cover. And there's a foil variant by Daniel Sampere. I don't know if it's just this regular cover as foil, or if it's a different, or if it's going to be like a full variant. So, but yeah, I'm so excited for this. I think this book is going to tell you whether or not you're really going to want to be all in. A lot of people again commented on our last video saying they're going to be all in. I would say give this a try. Pick this up and check it out. Because the other thing that's cool about it is it's only $4.99, and this is launching the initiative. If this was Marvel, guarantee this book would be $7.99, $8.99 for sure. So, yeah, pretty excited for this. Anything to add, Rocky?
Well, what I would add is that it's distinguishing between two very different sets of trinities, two very different worlds. You know, Superman energy, Darkseid energy, and you know what? No matter what, whether you're in a good mood or a bad mood reading a comic, or you're someone who's inclined, if you're more devilish, more angelic. I mean, whatever floats your boat. There's whether you're a Sith or a Jedi. There's you can choose the side that you want to be on here. You can choose the absolute universe or the mainstream. And I sort of like the dichotomy of it. I really like that, and I think the storytelling is going to be markedly different as well. And it's going to be great individual individual stories in both universes, and it's going to form part of a larger narrative that you can either ignore or get excited about. So I think that's, if it's done right, it should be really well, and it's a great starting point.
Which side are you reading first, Darkseid or Superman?
I'll be blunt, and I'm going to keep going back to this, but I got to tell you, what I love about the Absolute is universe is that all the heroes, they don't have anything. They don't have their family. They don't have they don't have their normal relationships. They don't have their origins are, Wonder Woman doesn't have her sisterhood. Batman doesn't have his, doesn't have his money. Superman doesn't have his family. That's what I like. Be alone. And more kick-ass because they need to be more badass. Because I think that the mainstream DC universe has misunderstood what we meant when we said we like superhero families. I think they've confused quality storytelling, character storytelling with you want family? Oh, we'll just keep adding members to the family. Adding members to a super family or a bat family doesn't equal good storytelling. That's not what I meant. That's not what we meant. So, anyways. I don't want to go off on a tangent. Suffice to say, I'm in for Absolute. That's my priority, Absolute. But I got to admit, when you got guys like Jeremy Adams over in the mainstream and some of the other titles that we're talking about, I'll definitely be picking up. We're going to be reviewing everything, so we're getting the best of both worlds. Hell.
Yeah, and I should mention, everybody, so I don't think, again, we know that this is basically sort of the same events that are happening, like coming out of Absolute Power. Darkseid and the New Justice League that Superman put together are going to come into conflict, right? That's this book. The conflict, the fight with Darkseid is this book. One half of the book is going to show us that conflict from the perspective of Superman. One half is going to show us from the perspective of Darkseid. I don't think we actually get the Absolute Universe yet. My understanding, and you can read the solicit here, it says the first, let's see, it says there's every hero on Earth has to gather to hold the line against a different version of the Lord of Apocalypse as we raise our cosmic defenses and prepare for war. When the first blows land, the shockwaves will ripple into every series in the DCU and shake the nature of reality to its core. So, whatever Darkseid, whatever moment that's been teased that's going to happen in Absolute Power with Darkseid where he senses something, he's going to use that moment to sort of reinvent himself. Again, I think he's going to level up. And I say that he's going to be at the level he always should have been, he always should be, but he's not always written that way and not always portrayed that way, because remember, there's only one Darkseid throughout all the DC multiverse. So he levels up in some way. Superman puts his Justice League together. They come into conflict. The conflict is this book, is the story, half of it told from Superman's perspective, half from Darkseid. And because of the fight, you hear about those ripples in reality. At the end of this book, at the end of this conflict, or the moment, the climax of this book is, in my opinion, when the Absolute Universe is created. So I don't know how much actual Absolute the versions we'll get of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but this is the book that causes it. So suffice to say, I'm going to be reading the Superman side first because I could never choose Darkseid over my boy Superman. But man, I mean, just what a cool idea, right? And you put Daniel Sampere and Wes Craig on art. I think it's going to be fantastic. So again, 64 pages, $4.99. That's a great price point. Super excited to check it out. All right, now on to the Absolute Universe. One of the things that Scott Snyder talked about in his newsletter, as I mentioned, was his decision to do the All-In Batman. He was very reluctant, apparently, for about a year, because he's like, man, I've done Batman. Like, if I'm going to do Absolute Universe, I'll take one of the smaller characters or what have you. But he had pitched what he thought the Absolute Universe should be, and he did that by, hey, here's an example of what the Absolute Batman would be in this universe, what we're trying to capture. And everybody loved the idea so much, they're like, well, Scott, if you came up with the idea, that you need to do it. So eventually he agreed, and so obviously he's the writer, Nick Dragotta is the artist. We got some variant covers by Wes Craig, Jim Lee, Mitch Gerrits, Ian Bertram, who has a very interesting, unique style. And there's also a 1 in 50 by Mitch, and a 1 in 100 black and white by Jim Lee, which is probably just his very regular variant in black and white. This is going to be, it's going to sell like gangbusters. I have heard something, why is he so big? I don't like how the bat symbol looks. It just looks like a square. why does it look like that? Hey, you know what? They're trying something different. Sometimes you do stuff, change designs or whatever, just to make it different. I'm not a big fan of that big black square in the middle of his chest either, but I do like the black on the shoulders and what have you. But it's okay to have it just be different for the sake of being different. You don't have to have a big reason for it. Like, I'd like to be able to look at this Batman and look at the main universe Batman and be able to tell them apart at a glance. And that big black square in the middle of his chest certainly does that. So I'm curious, but I'm also, Scott has done a lot of Batman. So would I rather see him on another character? Yeah, maybe. I'm reserving judgment on how much I'm going to enjoy this, because it does sound like it'll be interesting, although I talked before about how maybe they're overcomplicating the Absolute Universe. It's just there's too many unknowns right now, so we'll have to wait and see. But what is known is Nick Dragotta's art is heavily manga influenced. East of West is the best series that I can think about to get an idea of what his art looks like. So if you're curious, just Google East of West Image Comics, and you'll get an idea of what Dragotta's art looks like. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think a lot is actually going to fall on the colorist. Which the colorist is not listed here, which is kind of interesting. We'll see. But what are your thoughts on this, Rocky?
Well, it says, without the mansion, without the money, and without the butler, what's left for the absolute Dark Knight? The funny thing is that in the mainstream DC universe, we've gotten versions of Batman without the mansion, without the money, and without the butler.
Didn't seem different.
Know what that's like. Yeah. But I mean, so I chuckle at that a bit. But the bottom line is, this is, I love the fact that, because of the central conceit of the story, this being a separate universe, one where they're down and out, they have a more difficult time. It's dark side energy permeating this universe, and so perhaps good has a much more difficult time winning. So they got to be more badass. I don't care if there's significant deviations with the Absolute Universe. I straight up don't care. That's what the mainstream universe is for. I'm holding Scott Snyder to what he said, and he never. I don't know if he promised it, but he strongly sounded like a promise that this was going to be radically different. Good. That's what I want. I don't want anybody. And I'll just call them idiots ahead of time, who says, "Oh my God, that's not really what Batman should be like." Idiot, read the solicit. Listen to Scott Snyder. It's not supposed to be the Batman you're used to. Okay? And if you don't like it, fine, don't read it. But a lot of people are going to be reading this. And to be blunt, we get so much bloody Batman. We get so much of the bloody different iterations of the same old kind of Batman. We need a little bit of radical purging here, and that's why I'm holding out hope for this. And I have a lot of expectations for this. My expectations are undoubtedly too high, but I don't care. I want to get excited for this.
Remember Batman Reptilian, Garth Ennis, Liam Sharp?
Yeah, that was cool. I like that.
Yeah, how different that Batman's personality was. Looked about the same, but like something like that. Something different where it's fun and you do different things. Something unexpected. All right, super. Obviously, this is the absolute title that I'm most excited for. Actually, Batman probably least. Wonder Woman being second because of Skelly Thompson. I wasn't the hugest fan of Jason Aaron when he did his Superman run in Action Comics, but that was more to do with Bizarro and having Joker in it than it did. I thought his actual characterization of Superman was really interesting. But again, now you're stripping it away. Solicit's very similar. Without the fortress, without the family, without a home, what's left for the absolute Man of Steel? And the fact Rafa Sandoval's doing the art, I'm just really excited for this. Variant covers by Wes Craig, Jim Lee, and Clayton Crane. A 1 in 25 cover by Matteo Scalero. Another 1 in 50 by Clayton Crane. And, of course, the 1 in 100 black and white Jim Lee. 48 pages, just like the Batman book. $4.99. Yeah, I'm in. Interesting, though, it's one last thing, and I'll let Rocky talk about it. No family, no fortress, whatever. Clearly, he's walking through, like, what looks to be like a wheat field or something in Kansas, so he must still have some Midwest roots. Don't know if I like the whole mop top emo hair though. So, but really, at the end of the day, this is about what's the characterization going to be like. I mean, with Batman, you sort of know, like Yeah, his personality can be a little different. Like, to what degree is he going to be like a jackass and be stoic and not talk or whatever? Superman's a symbol of hope. But in this world where they're the underdogs, there's much less hope. You know, who is he? It's going to be kind of interesting. I just hope it doesn't lean too far into like dark and gritty, a la Zack Snyder's Man of Steel movie, which is dog shit. And I will always take that stance. But anyway, thoughts on this?
Yeah, just quick thoughts. One thing that we could say in general terms with respect to members of the Trinity, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and in this case Superman. In many ways, all of us are so familiar with the traditional origin of Superman. We tend to think that a lot of what forms Superman's moral base and his central goodness is Jonathan and Martha Kent, his family, how he was raised. And it's interesting. I don't know enough from the solicits here. It says without the family. How long was he without a family? Did he have Jonathan and Martha Kent? For how long? Was he on his own? Is he a loner? What shapes his moral foundations here in the absolute universe? And is he able to maintain that famous moral Boy Scout image? And, or is it something, is his moral code going to be radically different as well? It's so I don't care if it's more radically different myself, but I'm really interested in it, and I'm in particular, I think at the end of the day, how are all these three, how are these, the yin and the yang, of the mainstream to the absolute, at the end of the day, presumably they're going to come together to defeat to defeat this malevolent force of Darkseid, probably 5 years down the road. For absolute crisis, anyone? But fingers crossed. But anyways, again, another. I'm excited for this as well.
All right, so I just had an idea popped in my head as you were talking, based on this picture, emo hair, what have you. You talk about him not having a family. So he crashes into the wheat field in Kansas. Nobody sees him crash. Nobody comes and adopts him. He's adopted by a family of crows. He's raised by crows.
Yeah.
That pose does not look so different from The Crow, the comic by O'Barr, or James W. Barr, or James O'Barr. Yeah. So doesn't talk, doesn't know language, totally emo. Superman crossed with the Crow. Yeah, I don't want that. All right. Kelly Thompson was talking in her newsletter just a couple days ago about how excited she is. This is a huge bucket list, maybe the biggest item on her bucket list to write Wonder Woman. Hayden Sherman is the artist, and he's such a fantastic artist. His style has really evolved over the last 4 or 5 years since I first seen it, to become more detailed, a little more traditionally superheroic, but super, super talented. We've got Wes Craig, Jim Lee, and Jeff DeCall variant covers on this. We thought this was like an insect-like thing. It's actually, according to Kelly's newsletter, like a Pegasus, but that's made out of bones. It doesn't have any skin, which is super weird. There's a 1 in 25 variant from Dan Panosian, 1 in 50 from Jeff DeCall, and then a black and white version of Jim Lee. Again, 48 pages, $4.99. We've talked before when we first saw the images, the giant broadsword, the tattoos. I was kind of giving Rocky a bad time when he was saying he wants a Wonder Woman that punches first and asks questions later. But I was playing devil's advocate. I too want a badass Wonder Woman. Like, I want, if you guys have read Kelly Thompson's Captain Marvel run, Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel,
or even Scarlet. Scarlet's kick-ass too.
Yeah, Scarlet's coming out right now. Like strong female characters, grounded in the universe that they're in, whether that be G.I. Joe for Scarlet or Marvel Universe for Carol Danvers. But this is the absolute universe, and these are characters that are underdogs. That's what we've been told. So I want Kelly to even dial it up a little bit more, give Diana even a little bit more of an edge than she gave to Carol Danvers. I really do want a Wonder Woman. I won't put it like Rocky, punch first, ask questions later. I want a Wonder Woman who takes no shit. I want a Wonder Woman who doesn't put up with shit from anybody. Like, I want her to be able to, and it's not so different from the way Gal Gadot portrayed her in the Justice League movie. As much as I can't stand Zack Snyder's storytelling, I think that was one thing that he got right. You want a Wonder Woman where if somebody says the wrong thing, all she has to do is look at you, and you feel about this big, and you are worried that she's going to punch you and ask questions later. So I'm not too far off from Rocky. I probably don't want her to be quite as violent as he would prefer. But the thing is, I think that's what Kelly is going to bring to the table. She's great at writing strong female characters that don't take any crap. I think about her recent Black Widow run, and it was the same thing. A lot of really powerful female characters. So, very curious to see. And, a Pegasus that's made out of bones, clearly there's going to be mythology still wrapped up in her origin in some way. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, she is, it was also leaked that I believe this Wonder Woman, Diana, she's actually an archaeologist. And I'm inferring that because the solicit says without the it says without the, her solicit says, without the island paradise, without the sisterhood that shaped her, without a mission of peace. Thank God. One of the things that I think, and again, I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but this is why I love this absolute version of Wonder Woman. Gone are the Amazons. Good God, thank God they're gone. I hope they're dead and buried. And if she's an archaeologist, I hope she stumbles on a cave. She ends up, the tattoos that she has and the solicit, that tattoo that's on her shoulder, I believe is a symbol of Hecate, or Hecate, one of the, arguably one of the darker goddesses. So it's interesting. And so I like the fact that she doesn't have her sisterhood. She doesn't have the Amazons. Thank God we don't need a mission of peace. What the hell does that mean even in the mainstream universe? Wonder Woman's just so badly handled in the mainstream DC universe. Give her a personality. Give her, even if she doesn't have to hit first, I mean, just have her be more. She needs to be closer to more of a Red Sonja than she does need to be to a look, compassion is a superpower. I mean, anyways, I love this. Kelly Thompson is the right person to write this. And I'm going to cut Kelly Thompson a lot of slack here. This is one where I'm letting my I don't care. I have high expectations for this. And, I have some strong suspicions in terms of I want to play script doctor on this, but I think I'm excited for this, and it does kind of look. The more I looked at it, it looked like an insect, but I guess it is kind of a horse, like maybe a Pegasus, kind of a at first I thought it was a goofy way to draw it, but anyways, I'm excited. I'm excited for this. I'm the most excited for Wonder Woman, and I have higher expectations for Wonder Woman under Kelly Thompson, and I'm really looking forward to it. And Hayden Sherman, I agree with you, man. Interesting choice for an artist, and I've got no objection to it.
Yeah, Rocky's going to be checking our press preview inbox like every day. Is it there yet? Is it there yet? Is it there yet?
Yeah.
Okay, Batman, same creative team. 153, we've got Chip Zdarsky, Jorge Jimenez. Batman's back with a vengeance. Bruce Wayne's new public initiatives have Gotham on the verge of finally becoming a great city. Does that bright future include the Riddler? So I guess we've got Batman, Riddler. And I guess we're also going to Batman twice a month because we've got issue 154 with art by Carmine Di Giandomenico. So if they are going to, twice a month, they're going to need a second artist. So I guess they're going to trade off artists there. But I don't really have much to say. I like what Zdarsky's done on the title. Haven't loved it. I've liked it. And it sounds like he's going to continue, which isn't a surprise. So, anything to add about Batman?
Not really. I think it's. I probably will keep Batman on my pull list. But you allude to an interesting fact. There's a number of DC titles here that are going to be going twice monthly, and because of that, I'm going to be dropping some of them in the mainstream universe. Straight up, my focus is going to be on the absolute first. That'll be given my priority. And there's some that I'm sorry. There's no reason why they should be. There's no reason why they should go twice a month, in my opinion. Yeah. Batman, okay, fine. I get it. It's Batman. I'll cut him slack on that, but not on too many other ones, in my opinion. But Zdarsky's doing a reasonably good job. He's kind of hit and miss. It's I'm curious. I like what he's done with the Riddler, the storyline. I find that aspect interesting. This this new approach to the Riddler, maybe being more intelligent, more conniving. Because we know that he was manipulated by Dr. Caprio. So he's got some subplots that are moving forward that I'm still on board with Sardasky's run.
Yeah, it feels a little greedy to me, especially, everything's new, and you're starting the Absolute Universe, more titles. It feels greedy to have anything twice a month. I'm not a fan of anything ever coming out twice a month. As much as it's like, I forget sometimes what's happened. I got to jog my memory. I just don't like it. It's too much content.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is interesting, right? So Superman, same writer, but we know Joshua Williamson said it in the video that Dan Mora is coming on as the artist, so no more Jamal Campbell, who was the main artist, but there was some fill-ins from time to time. But I thought everybody, for the most part, did a fantastic job when they came on. And Dan Mora is just he's got such a classic style when it comes to superheroes. But one of the things, and I said this in our video about Williamson saying, hey, a new Superwoman. And it's a mystery who she is. Well, not a mystery anymore because it says right here in the solicit that it's Lois Lane. So we know it's Lois Lane. Something happens at the end of Absolute Power where she has new powers. How long are they going to last? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But the best thing about the solicit, other than Dan Moore art, which looks fantastic, is the fact that we're going to have one of Superman's greatest enemies, the Time Trapper, is going to show up, and he's going to be the antagonist for this next arc. So Joshua Williamson continues to roll out classic Superman villains, and I know that Superman's rogue gallery doesn't match up with Batman's. That maybe nobody's does, with the exception of Spider-Man. But I like that we're being reminded. Man, Superman does have some really great villains. As much as I don't care for Mixius Pitalik, other than that, he's got some great villains, and it's fun. Been fun to see him. Variant covers, Simone DeMeo, Carla Cohen, Chris Somney, Ben Oliver, Kelly Jones doing a Trick or Treat variant cover. I mean, it is Halloween. So we'll see how that all plays out. But any thoughts now that it's Lois with powers?
You know what? I've always sported my second crush in comic books. My first crush was Saturn Girl. My second crush was Lois Lane. And I could let my imagination run wild. The thought of Lois Lane looking like Superwoman in that skin-tight outfit, the Period fanboy, I got a shit-eating grin on my face. I love it. I don't really know what the story would be. We've kind of seen Superwoman appear before as Lana Lang and Lois coming out of the New 52, et cetera, et cetera. But I trust Joshua Williamson because he's earned my respect and trust on the way he writes Superman. He's done a really good job on Superman, so I have faith in him. And Time Trapper happens to be an old Legion of Superheroes villain as well back in the day. So, and it just brings back good memories because he's just such an awesome villain, Time Trapper. And I've forgotten more about him. And it's the fact that it just shows me that they're thinking, and that there's so many examples here, and we don't have enough time really to go into details necessarily to really go that deep in the weeds on all this because there's so many solicits. But I love these solicits. They're really good solicits, and they're whetting my appetite, and I can tell that they put a lot of thought into some of this stuff. And even titles that I normally wouldn't be inclined to get, it's like, God damn, I don't like this writer, but I love that artist, or I don't love that artist, but I love this writer, and they're together, and it's like, man, I'm gonna have a really hard time, because all of us are on budgets, and like God forbid, if we played a game, you only got $50 a month to spend on DC Comics. Which comic books are you going to buy in October? Good luck choosing that one, man. Wow.
Yeah, got to be all in. Got to get everything. Not to bury the lead, but it is called The Many Deaths of Doomsday, so Doomsday is going to appear as well. So I think, I said Time Trapper as an antagonist. It's probably going to be Doomsday as kind of the main villain. Time Trapper in the background. Is he the one manipulating Doomsday? Yeah, it's all up in the air. All remains to be seen. Super excited. Super, super excited. No pun intended there. For Wonder Woman, we've got same creative team, Tom King, Daniel Sampere, getting away from the Absolute Power tie-in that wasn't very good, and continuing to tell the story they're going to tell. We've got variant covers by Sampere and David Nakayama, so DNA. Also Steven Subic. He's got a very weird style. It seems like a weird fit for Wonder Woman. We'll have to see how that plays out. Kelly Jones with a Halloween variant, a foil, Daniel Semper, and then written by Ivan Cohen with art by Marguerite Sauvage, Joe Quinones, Joelle Jones, Lee Weeks, Paul Pope, Brian Boland, Jen Bartel, and more. We've got Wonder Woman Uncovered #1, and it goes along with the other uncovered DC books that we've seen, right? So I think there was a Poison Ivy one, there's a Harley Quinn one, there's been some others I'm forgetting, but it's basically going to be a collection of variant covers from Wonder Woman comics. So that's coming in October as well. Do we have anything to add about this Wonder Woman?
Well, the Wonder Woman issue 14, the solicits talk about the birth of Trinity. So we're actually going to have, in fact, that's one of the variant covers. It shows Trinity, a baby infant, who I assume is the infant Trinity on the cover. So that's something that's sort of been one of the ongoing central mysteries. Tom King has had backups of the adventures of Trinity with Damian Wayne and John Kent. But now we're actually getting to her birth. Something happens to Steve Trevor. Is he the father? Is it somebody else? Is Trinity the adopted daughter of Wonder Woman? These are questions that we've all been asking ourselves who've been readers of the Tom King Wonder Woman run, and so we're going to be getting some answers in October. So interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. Action Comics 1070, a long time waiting. Mark Waid's been waiting a long time. This is probably his #1 item on the bucket list. Mark Waid is writing Action Comics. He does have a co-writer, which is interesting, it's Mariko Tamaki. Art by Clayton Henry and Skylar Patridge. I have a feeling it says written by, Mark Waid, Mariko Tamaki. I think it's probably, as we've seen in recent Action Comics books, where there's a lead story and then I hesitate to call it a backup because it's, usually a backup's like 4 to 8 pages and these are typically longer. So there's probably like a second feature story that's probably a little shorter that's written by Mariko Tamaki. Mark Waid's telling his own story, Mariko's telling her own story. Clayton Henry doing the art with Mark Waid, Skylar Patridge doing the art with Mariko Tamaki. Variant covers by Wes Craig, Eddie Barrows, Danny Mickey, Mark Spears. Again, 40 pages, so you got the main story, probably 22 pages, and the backup probably 15, 18, something like that. I don't know that I could be more excited. I mean, Mark Waid finally getting a chance to write Action Comics. Probably no active comic writer that's as big of a fan of Superman as Mark Waid. So we're not 100% sure if something's going on with the Phantom Zone. There's no villain necessarily named. If you look at that main cover there from Clayton Henry, somebody who looks like, I don't know, wrapped in bandages or something. So really excited. And then, based on the solicit, Woman of Tomorrow, so it's a Supergirl story from Mariko and Skylar. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for this. Oh, and I should also mention, we have what looks to be the villainous character, Malevolent, in those bandages, but then, up above, the image of Clark taking his shirt off, revealing Superman, that looks like Mon-El from the Legion of Superheroes. Yeah. So we know he was trapped in the Phantom Zone. He's got some ties to the Phantom Zone when he was being poisoned. He's a Daxamite. They're allergic to lead. There was one point where there was lead all around, and he was going to die. So they sent him to the Phantom Zone so he wouldn't die, and then eventually he was rescued. So yeah, I'm really curious to see. Love Mon-El, love his costume, love that he's going to show back up, and yeah, just really excited for Mark Waid on Superman. I'm going to sit down with Mark at Comic-Con, so hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about this.
Yeah, right on. I'm excited this is going to be, we're getting an origin for a new character called the Phantom King, who was the very first inhabitant of the Phantom Zone. Something's gone wrong with the Phantom Zone. Superman has to investigate. It looks like we're going to be getting a new revitalized origin for Mon-El. Mark Waid used to write Legion of Superheroes. Mark Waid used to write Supergirl in the Legion of Superheroes, and so he knows the Legion of Superheroes lore, and he's going to. We can expect, I think, a revitalized history for Mon-El. This idea of the Phantom King, who I believe it's inferred perhaps is probably going to be this villain, and I just think it has all the hallmarks of something great. The Supergirl backup. We're finally getting a Supergirl comic, or at least it's in Action Comics. Mariko Tamaki, she did do Supergirl Being Super, which was a 4-issue series, I think 5 or 6 years ago, and although it was out of continuity, it was I had it, I got it. It was pretty good. I didn't mind it, and so I didn't mind Mariko Tamaki's Detective Comics run there. I thought it was reasonably good,
Yeah, well.
and I'm really curious that I'm Skylar Skylar Patridge on the art. She's hit and miss on the art. It depends who her inker is, if I recall, because some of her art I really loved, and at other times it was a little bit disappointing. So I'm assuming now, all that will be ironed out. But anyways, again, I'm excited for this too. I'm definitely going to be checking it out. It is weekly. I mean, 4 of them a month. I mean, wow, that's a lot of comics in a month. It's a little frustrating. I remember back in the day was coming out of Action Comics Weekly. That was I don't believe in weekly comic books. I think that's too much. I think it's a mistake. But damn, who am I kidding? I'm addicted to comics. It just means I'm going to spend that much more on comic books. Damn you, Mark Waid.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, right? I'm not opposed to weekly comics if it's once in a while. Like, I like the idea of 52 when they did it. We could argue Batman Eternal, Batman Robin Eternal, how successful those were. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. But at the same time, I'm like, man, Mark Waid finally on Action Comics. And yeah, I mean, they are trying to capitalize on the buzz of All In.
No, what they did, what DC told Mark Waid, they said, look, Mark, I know you want to do 4 extra comics, but we can't give you 4 extra comics, but we'll publish it 4 times a month. Yeah, how's that? Yeah.
The thing is, they didn't even do this with New 52. With New 52, they kept it to 1, issue of each title a month. I mean, I don't know. Again, it feels a little greedy. I wish they weren't doing it as well. I'm always going to buy Batman. I'm always going to buy Action Comics. I mean, I have almost a complete run of Action Comics from issue 300 up, filling in between 2 and 300. So I can't not get it. So I don't know. I'm part of the problem. I say don't do it weekly, but I'm still supporting it. So Detective Comics 1090. Here is another new creative team. We just talked about one. Tom Taylor's been talking about this on social media. He sounds really excited. He's taken over. Ron V's run is finally going to end. Finally. So Tom Taylor, I'm so excited. He's with Mikhail Yanin. I am a huge Mikhail Yanin fan. I will say, though, Mikhail's not as fast as he used to be, and I hope he's been working ahead. He hasn't been doing too much other than some absolute power stuff, and I can't even really remember. I mean, he helped a little bit on Justice Society, but that book, plagued with delays. My point is, it seems like he's had a lot of time in his hands. We haven't seen a lot of work from him. So I hope he's like a couple, 3, 4 issues in on this detective run so his art can be in every issue, or as many issues as possible. We've got variant covers by Dan Panosian, Bruno Redondo, Tony Harris, Ashley Wood. I'm just really excited. It sounds like Tom's going to be going back and to the earliest days of Batman. And he talks about the murders of Thomas and Martha, which I sort of get. I don't know that we need another retelling of Batman's origin, but this is Tom's first chance, on one of the 2 main Batman titles, so I sort of get it. But one thing that's interesting is we don't have, it doesn't say anything about who the villain might be.
Yeah.
So
no, I know.
No idea. And there's no hints in the covers either, but Dan Panosian put his cover out when this got dropped. He put his variant cover out on Twitter, and man, people were just praising it, and rightly so. That his cover is just it's Batman in a library, and he's drawn like every book. It's ridiculously detailed. Go check it out. Urban Barbarian is his Twitter handle. Go and look at that amazing cover. It's fantastic. So, thoughts on Tom Taylor on Batman?
Well, I feel a little bit sorry for Tom Taylor. He was some negative comments on Twitter, which I couldn't help but laugh at. Some of the jokes were that they were wondering if Bruce Wayne was going to contribute to the environment to put out fires in Borneo, as a reference to his Titans and his Nightwing run and what have you. But the reality is, every single time, and how many times were you and I reviewing something written by Tom Taylor, God forbid, if I get a little bit critical, and then I have to wait a couple issues, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's just amazing again. I mean, that's just Tom Taylor. I mean, sometimes it's like a slow wine. You know, it's like a fine wine. I might have to drink a couple bottles before it hits me. But that's a flawed analogy. But in any event, I have faith in Tom Taylor, and I'm definitely going to be checking this out. I don't know what the story is, but you know what? He's had a lot of time to think about it, and a lot of time to reflect, and I think that we're going to be in for a pleasant surprise. And he did make the comment on Twitter in response, very diplomatically, saying, guys, you don't even know what the story is yet. Don't judge it until you've read it. So he's got a lot of faith. As all good writers do, he's got faith. He's got confidence in his own writing, and I choose to have that as well. So I'll be picking this up for sure.
Yeah, again, you know me, I'm not always a big fan of going back and adding things to people's origins. So this idea that there was something there that night at his origin hasn't revealed itself all these years, I don't know. But much like yourself, I'm generally a fan of Tom's, and he always gives his all. You know, whether I like the story or not, he never phones it in. So yeah, we'll see. So he's left Nightwing. We know that the Fallen Grayson is the last arc for him and Bruno Redondo. So how that run will age, I guess we'll wait and see. But in the meantime, we have Dan Watters taking over Nightwing. I had Dan Watters on the show recently. Obviously, he couldn't say anything about this. We didn't talk a lot after we stopped recording. Maybe I could have got him to mention it, off the record. But he self-professed, even when I had him on, said, the stories he writes tend to be kind of weird and out there. And just for those that might not be aware, when he came on, he talked about his Destro run for Skybound that's going on right now. So it's going to be interesting to see him take on Dick Grayson, take on Nightwing, Dexter Soy, whose art tends to be really textured. Sometimes it's a little too loose for my taste, but he's going to be handling the art duties. Again, Dan Panosian doing a variant, Gleb Melnikoff also doing a variant, and Ethan Young with a ratio variant, Kelly Jones doing a Halloween variant. Bloodhaven, rival gangs, Nightwing's trying to clean things up. Doesn't sound so different from what we're getting now, but with Dan Watters writing it, it's going to be quite a bit different, I think. Thoughts?
Oh, I agree with you. I think it's going to be very different. Like you said, the Solicit, it sounds different. It sounds somewhat generic. There's a power vacuum in Bloodhaven, just as the new creative team ends in the meta world here. Well, yeah, it sounds almost a little bit cliche, but it isn't, because it's Dan Watters. And you couldn't get a more different style of writer between Tom Taylor and Dan Watters. Those are very, very different writers. And I think that's a good thing. And I say that with respect. Tom Taylor's Nightwing is beloved by thousands of people, and it has its place in DC lore. And Dan Watters, like I say, you and I have reviewed a lot of what he's written, and some of it I won't pretend to understand all of his backups for Detective or what have you, or some of the series were a little bit out there, but he's really good at He does put a lot of thought. He often puts a lot of metaphors in his stories, and he makes you think. It's thought-provoking, and I'm Dexter Soy. I love Dexter Soy as an artist. I think he's excellent, and I hope he's up to the task of illustrating what Dan Watters scripts, because I find that sometimes Dan Watters is not always paired with artists that are capable of illustrating what he is, because he's got some pretty wild ideas. How wild can they be in a Nightwing comic? Well, I think we're going to find out. Yeah.
Are you reading his Destro? Did you read the first issue?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
So,
I didn't mind it. Yeah.
I thought that's kind of the most traditional, it's G.I. Joe, so it's not exactly superheroes, but had a traditional sort of classic superhero comic feel. So, very, very curious. Maybe the one I'm most curious about. We'll have to see. All right, Harley Quinn. Elliot Kalin is writing Harley Quinn, which wow. Not in a million years would I have expected this. Mindy Lee is the artist. We've got variant covers by DNA, David Nakayama, and Jorge Fornes. There's a ratio by Sarah Baslin. Kelly Jones is doing a Halloween variant. Elliot Kalin, for those not familiar, he used to write for The Daily Show when Jon Stewart was there. He's had done some previous comic work before. It was kind of had a lot of buzz when it first dropped. Maniac of New York from Aftershock that ended up having 3 volumes. It was really good. Elliot is a comic book fan for sure, and I just don't. He's got a good sense of humor. I don't know what to expect, but I mean, if it's anything like Maniac of New York, I think it's going to be something that Rocky's going to like, because it's going to lean into sort of a darker Harley Quinn. Dark humor Harley Quinn, badass Harley Quinn, and much less zany, wacky Harley Quinn. So, can't really tell that much from the solicit. But, man, just really curious.
Yeah. What's funny, the solicit made me laugh, because I thought this was actually a funny take. When Harley Quinn discovers her favorite dangerous neighborhood in Gotham City, Throat Cut Hill has been gentrified beyond recognition. She breaks bad and goes on a one-woman mission to try to make it safe for crime again. I think that's kind of funny. I had to Google Elliot Callan, and I found out he wrote for the Daily Show. And the Daily, I mean, that's hilarious. I mean, I'm a regular watcher of the Daily. I think it's, so if he's played a role in that, maybe he can actually make a funny version of Harley, and actually entertain me and make me laugh, because quite frankly, I've not been a big fan of Harley over the last 5 years. The last time I laughed reading a Harley comic, I think Stephanie Phillips was the last person to actually get a few laughs out of me when she wrote some Harley issues. But I haven't been a big fan of Harley lately, and hope maybe that will change. I mean, the first week of October, the month of October, we're going to give all these comic books a try, and we shall see. But I got to tell you, if Elliot Callan manages to get me to collect Harley Quinn again, that'll be impressive.
Yeah, here's one of the things I love, right? Like, I generally don't say no when people ask to come on the show if I can all make it work, if I have the time. And I really do like reaching out to people at smaller publishers that I haven't heard of before, that are kind of getting their start, just to, get a chance to meet them and, see how I like the books and what have you. And I loved Maniac of New York. It was so interesting. And Elliot was on twice to talk about that. So now he's on Harley, the fourth pillar of the DC universe. And if I want to have him on the show, I probably can have him on the show. That's just really cool to me. So yeah, I haven't reached out to him yet, but I need to, just to say, hey man, you're on Harley. That's crazy. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be at San Diego, but yeah, I definitely need to hit him up, because if he is going to be at San Diego, I need to be sure to say hi. All right, another one that's same creative team, Poison Ivy number 26, G. Willow Wilson, who is going to be at San Diego. Hope I get a chance to run into her. Marcero Takara, same artist. Jessica Fong doing the cover. Variant covers by Jenny Frisson. We also have Sebastian Fuamura doing a 1 in 25. Jenny Frisson doing a 1 in 50. Kelly Jones variant, or Halloween variant, I should say. So, yeah, new arc for Poison Ivy. We know, I think the next issue is going to be like an anniversary issue for Poison Ivy. So I am curious, because we talked about it when we talked about the finale of the latest arc, how in the entire first 2 years, if you will, that G. Willow Wilson's been writing this, it's been one big story, right? It's been the Lamia spores. It's been the sort of the reimagining or retelling, updated origin of Pamela Isley. So now that big story that she's telling is finally behind Pamela, and she's not dying anymore. She's been dying for 2 years with the Lamia spores. Where does the story go from here? I'm very curious to see that, because I think G. Willow Wilson has a very good take on who Pamela Isley is. I've said before that she's much less of a two-dimensional character. I've never been more interested in Poison Ivy, so yeah, very curious to see what comes next for Poison Ivy. Thoughts?
I don't. It's gonna sound like I'm disagreeing with you, but I'm not. I guess she's interesting, but I guess I'm not. I'm just not interested to see where she's going, because I feel like I just, even reading the solicit, it reads like the previous 20 solicits. It's just now, instead of Lamia spores, she's doing something else, resurrecting an ancient place in Gotham's wetlands, and and with the same art and the same artists and the same, it feels the same and it reads the same. And so I got to tell you, this is probably close to the top of the list of what I won't be continuing with, because it was a great ending point. We had a great, 24 issue. We had a 24 issue long story. So I don't think I'm going to be getting this. Although, in fairness, J. Willie Wilson is going to be writing a Poison Ivy Swamp Thing crossover with Mike Perkins on art, which you're going to be getting to, and that I probably will be picking up.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, this might be one of those things where we read it and we're like, yeah, it does feel like it's just retreading the same ground, and yeah, we drop off. We'll have to wait and see. All right, another new creative team. Look at that gorgeous art on that cover right there. Torrin Grunbeck is taking over Catwoman. Fabian Marsicolo is doing the interior art. That cover that you see right there, that main cover is by Sebastian Famura. Frank Cho and Omer have variant covers, as does Nubovich. 1 in 50 Frank Cho ratio. If you're not familiar, Torrin Grunbeck, I'm pretty sure she may have done like some anthology work for DC here or there with all those anthology event tie-in, whatever. But mostly she's known for her work over at Marvel. She's written Thor and some other stuff. So this is obviously after the end of the 9 Lives story that Tini Howard has been telling. So I'm excited. I'm excited for Torrin Grunbeck. I do like her work. I think she's talented. I think she gives her characters an edge. And I think Selena should have an edge. So I'm not familiar with Fabiana Maricola, so we'll see how his interiors go. But yeah, I'm excited for this. But that being said, I've never been the biggest Catwoman fan. Everybody that listens to this podcast knows that I, don't go in for her relationship with Bruce. I think she should be out on her own. Batman should see her as a villain. So, but yeah, I'm excited to get a different take on Selena. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I'm a huge Jane Foster Thor fan, and I understand that Torrin also worked with Jason Aaron a little bit on aspects of the Punisher. I also understand she worked a little bit with Al Ewing on Venom. I've not read any of Al Ewing's Venom, so I don't. I know I must have read something written by Torrin Grunbeck. I must have, because I got a lot of Jane Foster Thor issues. I just don't remember reading anything with her name on it, to be blunt. But that gives me a lot of hope that maybe there's going to be something interesting here. And, this is one of those things where, we're getting some new blood but yet with some experience. This doesn't feel like a token hire. This is a woman that has some experience, and I like the experience that I like the resume. And so this is what I'm hoping for. And this is just another reason why I got a smile on my face, and I'm very hopeful for this All In.
Yeah, it's funny. She's of Nordic descent. I can't remember exactly which. I think she's from a Scandinavian country. So it's so interesting to me. Like, her first work I ever read over at Marvel, it was on, I think, Thor or something, like something Norse. And I was like, wait, are you stereotyping here? You pigeonholing her? So great to see her, branch out from that to doing Catwoman. Can't wait. All right. Green Lantern, same creative team. Thank God. Jeremy Adams, Zermanico. What more can I say? We love this book. We love Jeremy. He's a fantastic talent. Wish he was doing more. And I guess he sort of is this month, because second half of the page there, you'll notice Green Lantern Civil Corps, special number 1, where he's doing it along with Philip Kennedy Johnson, which, if you recall, last time I had Philip on, he talked about how things were with his book and Jeremy's book were eventually going to cross over. They were building up to an event. Is this the beginning of that event? Possibly so. So art in this one is by Salvador LaRocca, covers by Brad Walker, who doesn't do enough DC work, and I really miss having him on DC Interiors. I love Brad's art. I think I own more Brad Walker original art pages than any other artist. But anyway, we've got Lord Premier Theranos as the foe. We've got Dark Stars. We've got John Stewart back. We've got Hal Jordan. I just can't wait for more of the Green Lantern story coming in October from Jeremy Adams and Philip Kennedy Johnson. What are your thoughts, Rocky?
Yeah, very much so. I will make a little bit of a joke. I have no idea. I find it funny that they're calling it Green Lantern Civil Corps Special.
Yeah.
Like, civil? Why the word civil? Why not just Green Lantern Corps? We've had a Green Lantern Corps series, so it's kind of interesting. Is there going to be a reason why they call it?
Well, I
What's
think
civil?
they're playing it off of Civil War. I think I even said when I was in that Civil War, like you want to say Civil War, but it's Civil
okay,
Corps.
maybe.
So yeah. And is it because, technically Theranos is the one that's in charge of the Corps, but we know there's a rebellion going on, so it's sort of a civil war, infighting, whatever. I mean, I'm just guessing.
Yeah, no, and I wanna give a shout out to Jeremy Adams and give him and tell him that he kind of fooled me, because I remember I direct messaged him and I asked him at one point. I said, are you going to be doing anything in the Absolute DC, anything new for DC in October? And he said no. But the way I had phrased it when I went back and looked is that I asked him if it was in the Absolute, and so he wasn't lying. He keeps things pretty close to the vest, obviously, because he has to. But he wasn't lying. But of course, I should have. I just assumed he wasn't going to be with DC after this. So I'm so happy. That Jeremy Adams is still at DC, and now he's on 2 titles and not just one. So no, it's good news. I'd like to see him write more than just Green Lantern, but we shall see.
Yeah. I mean, preaching to the choir over here. All right, new creative team on Green Arrow, and it's getting a renumbering, I guess, because anniversary issue. It's issue number 350. So Joshua Williamson, but he's being joined by Chris Condon. We've got art by Emma K. Nullipin and Montos, cover there by Torrin Clark. It's an oversized issue. Features the aftermath of Oliver's Queen's role in Absolute Power. We know was on Amanda's side. Also setting the stage for the next chapter. He did the unthinkable to protect his family. Now he's got to deal with the ramifications. Will we see Connor Hawke as Green Arrow, as I speculated? I don't know. I guess it remains to be seen. But I think this is Joshua Williamson's last issue on the character before he hands it off to Chris Condon, who I've read some of his stuff. It was okay, but it wasn't superhero stuff, so we'll have to see. And then there's also an annual that is being written by Joshua Williamson. Sean Isaacs, who is the regular artist on Green Arrow, is handling that as well. So sort of feel like that'll be the last we get from that creative team. And then, Green Arrow going forward, I don't know. I sort of want it to be Connor Hawke, just to sort of change it up, have a change of pace, but remains to be seen. Any thoughts on Green Arrow?
Well, if it's Oliver Queen, I got to tell you, the Oliver Queen, I'm not interested in the Green Arrow series by Williamson with Oliver Queen, but then we get Absolute Power, and then Oliver Queen, he seems to be a traitor now, and so if he is he really a traitor? Is he just undercover? We don't know. Absolute Power isn't over yet. Absolute Power number 4 will actually land in October by the looks of things. And so I'm actually wondering, I might be interested in picking this up, because Oliver Queen, if he's radically different, or if he's kind of more of a, if he's ostracized by his family now, which I kind of hope, because I mean, who the hell thinks of Oliver Queen as a family man? The guy should be a philanderer. Obviously, I have a negative view of Green Arrow. He's always been the character I've loved to hate, in a good way. So we'll see. I would prefer Connor Hawke as well, but I have a feeling that's not going to be the case, because coming out of Absolute Power, Oliver Queen might be a more interesting character. I have a feeling Black Canary isn't going to like him anymore, but so that might be a reason for me to, if I can read a comic where Oliver Queen gets shunned by his family, maybe I'll pick that issue up. But so I don't know. Jury's still out on this. I'll have to wait and see.
Poor Green Arrow lying in the gutter, all depressed. That's Rocky's idea of a good time. All right, Flash, another one. And Simon Spurrier was actually joking about this on Twitter, saying, I talked with Spurrier. He's taken over the book, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. He's not very funny. I didn't find it to be too humorous. He is continuing. It's supposed to be a new jumping on point. This book is so, what's the word? Impenetrable. comes to mind. Like, I don't know how. I just don't know how, if you keep Cy Spurrier on the book and you're still trying to tell the same story, because there's no way the story he's telling can come to any sort of satisfying conclusion in 2 more issues that we're going to get before this. It's so inscrutable. I don't know how anybody would jump onto Flash 14 as the first issue of Cy Spurrier's run and understand what's going on. We've been reading it for 12 issues and we don't understand what's going on. So, yeah, it is what it is. I don't, again, I think Cy Spurrier's super talented. Love his Hellblazer run. But yeah, this is not it. And I don't have anything other to add other than that. Although Vasco Gregev, I think, is a good choice for artist. And that cover by Mike Deodato right there is fantastic. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's Flash by Cy Spurrier.
Well, I mean, you and I, we're engaging in diplomacy right now. I'm not, like I say, Cy Spurrier, he's a good writer. He's just, I don't think his talents are best used on the Flash. I think this was a miss. I'll just say it. Of all, this is my least favorite thing in October, is this Flash. This was a miss. He should not be on Flash. He should have been taken off Flash. And you don't tell me you couldn't have found a new up-and-coming writer. Anybody, put him on Flash, give him that opportunity. And even not only that, it's hilarious when this is being solicited as like a new jumping on point. It's like, seriously? Jumping on to what? And he still talks about, the solicit even reads that Wally's begun an evolution into a new form. Oh my God! You mean Wally's still evolving? I don't understand the form that he was in to begin with, and and then there was all these other forms. I mean, the solicit confuses me. So I don't know. I mean, we can joke about it, but I mean, and we'll read it, and maybe we'll be wrong. And it mentions Scataris, and Scataris I think of Warlord and all my Warlord comics, and so I like that. So I'm not saying there isn't something there to kind of get my attention, but the journey so far with him is sort of
painful.
Tainted a little bit.
Yeah, it's been painful. We mentioned Poison Ivy is something you're probably not going to continue. You got to pick one. You got to read either Flash. You got to read Poison Ivy. Which one?
I'll be Poison Ivy for sure.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, super interesting creative team for the next book, Titans 16. John Layman making his return to the DCU. Pete Woods on art. Variant covers by Rafa Sandoval. Kelly Jones does a Trick or Treat variant. Titans is not. I'm just going to say Titans under Tom Taylor has been underwhelming to me. I was excited for it, and it never got there. It always felt like something was missing. John Layman is an interesting choice. I tend to like the stuff that he does when he leans into humor a little more. But he definitely is capable of writing traditional superhero stuff. He was on Detective Comics in the New 52 very, very briefly, and then he kind of fell into that same too much editorial interference that a lot of people did, Andy Diggle and some others, James Robinson. I'm very curious to see what he's going to come up with for the Titans, and can he bring the feel that we're used to with the Titans that's been sort of missing during the Tom Taylor run. So, we'll see. And Pete Woods is a fantastic artist. One of the things that we've talked about at times where we just have felt the art hasn't done a big service to the stories that have been written over the last, couple years. So it goes to what you were saying earlier about, some bigger names, some familiar talent back on the books. And Pete Woods is a perfect example of that. So thoughts on this?
Yeah, I love Pete Woods. He's probably one of my top 20 artists. I like his particular style. The aspect of the solicit that I find interesting, it says, will the Titans' failure to control Amanda Waller mean lasting consequences for the hero community? I think that says it all. I think there's a little bit of speaking outside the comic here. It's almost as if the writer, John Layman, knows that the Titans have been a terrible replacement for the Justice League. They really have failed. They in terms of perception-wise, I mean, while they technically have beaten the bad guys, and there was Beast World, and they've held their own, and yeah, okay, you know, they've helped the environment, so they're good, they're superheroes. The fact is, they've been extremely underwhelming, and I think there's a perception not only by the readership that the Titans have failed, but it looks like even within the citizens of the DC universe are now holding the Titans accountable, saying, "Thank God the Justice League is back. Now the Titans, what the hell do we need you for?" And the fact, it looks like maybe John Layman might be using that as the story points, and I think that's kind of clever, quite frankly, because I think the Titans should be held accountable a little bit, because it was, I mean, we joke about it, but the truth is, I'm still a little bit pissed off about it. If you want to know the truth, it was a huge disappointment, and it was kind of inexcusable in my mind, some of the sad stories we got on Titans. But I'll get over it thanks to the all-in aspect.
Yeah, 100%. Batman and Robin, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Javier Fernandez. Philip was talking about this on social media as well. He's super excited. He handled Action Comics. He handled Superman. Now he's getting a chance to write Batman. I actually liked Joshua Williamson's run, even though the art, especially when it was Simone DeMeo, wasn't really my favorite. We both talked about it multiple times, how we loved the fact that it was Batman and Robin, but one of the things that was explored was the father and son relationship. Bill Kennedy Johnson is very close with his son, so I hope that aspect of the story continues. But the Solicit talks a lot about Damian, so I'm really going to be really curious to see where this goes. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, the key aspect of the Solicit, when Damian starts to look beyond his life of endless violence, a different way to help the world begins to present itself. I like that. It shows another Philip Kennedy Johnson exploring that idea of Damian taking another step forward in maturity. He started off as sort of a narcissistic, annoying child that was kind of lovable, and then he turned into really kind of just an unlikable kid, an unlikable little prick. And then all of a sudden he becomes a little bit, he gains some friendships in Williamson's Robin series, and he becomes more likable again. But now he's getting older, and with Batman and Robin under Williamson, he's got a closer relationship with his dad, and we've had some nice character moments there and evolution there. Now what's next? It's Damian going out into the world, and he can't always resolve everything with a punch or some sort of a narcissistic comment that shoots out of his mouth. And so one thing about Philip Kennedy Johnson, we know he's really good with character work. He's really shown that with his Green Lantern War Journal, in my mind, particularly with the some of those John Lantern's mother and that AI construct character. I thought so. I know Philip Kennedy, PKJ, is capable of that, and I'm really curious to see what he has in mind for Damian. And I won't mind it if it's well written, and if it is Batman and Robin. You made a good point. Hopefully we'll get a lot of Batman in there as well. But I'm curious. I'm confident he's up to the task.
Yeah, it's funny. When I read the Solicit, New Way to Help the World, is that his manga? Is he going to be publishing manga? Like with morality lessons?
He's going to be a comic artist.
Yeah, we'll see. Kelly Thompson, the aforementioned favorite writer of this show, she's still on Birds of Prey. Sami Basri is coming on for art for this next arc, even though that art on the cover will look familiar. Leonardo Romero, who kicked off the series with Kelly. Kelly mentioned in her newsletter that this is going to be much more of sort of an espionage spy thriller, and we've got some, as we've had throughout, sort of a rotating cast for Birds of Prey, where it's Black Canary and Big Barda and Oracle, but a lot of the other characters are changing. So Vixen's out. We've got Grace Choi and Onyx that are going to all go on a rescue mission to rescue Cassandra Cain, who was infiltrating the Ninth Day, a mysterious corporation that Birds of Prey thinks is kidnapping people. So as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Leonardo Romero's art, and mostly it's the color work, that is a fantastic cover. It looks like it could be like the layout of like a Charlie's Angels movie poster type, or James Bond type movie poster, spy movie. And that's exactly the type of story we're getting. So fantastic job on that cover. So yeah, I'm really excited. I like the first arc of Birds of Prey much better than the second arc, where they're sort of dimension hopping hasn't been as enjoyable for me. It sounds like this arc is getting back to more of the role I think the Birds of Prey should be playing. Like it reminds me of when they first showed up, right, with that classic Gary Frank art, where they were sort of like more of a, almost like an espionage, or they would go undercover and that sort of thing. I love that, as opposed to leaning into the superhero aspects of the characters. I love more of the undercover Mission Impossible type Birds of Prey stories, and it sounds like that's what this is. So super excited for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarity here between her Birds of Prey and what she's doing over in Scarlet, I think. I think there's a lot of interesting, plot overlaps, potentially. One criticism I have is I enjoyed the Birds of Prey's first arc much more than the second arc, which I think plot-wise, I think it was kind of, it's dragged on. And one thing that Thompson does, and I think she was trained under Bendis for a while, and I think sometimes she has a tendency to maybe focus a little bit too much on conversations and dialogue between characters, and the plot sort of meanders and gets stale a little bit. Now that may sound like a harsh criticism, but I mean, she makes up for it with some pretty good character moments. One thing I hope, I will say this, it mentions the ninth day. What she hasn't done yet in Birds of Prey is that there hasn't been actually any interesting actual DC villains. She hasn't done that. She's created her own, and they're not as good. I would encourage Kelly Thompson to utilize, you have the entire DC universe of villains. Please use some of the actual known villains in the Birds of Prey, instead of creating this long drawn out plots where you haven't used any actual villains, because I don't really feel like the Birds of Prey have actually been challenged yet. But that's my long-winded way of saying that I like what she's doing. I'm on board. I'm just being critical.
Yeah, I'm just being critical. Batman Brave and the Bold, I mean, how can we say it's a different creative team when it's constantly evolving, right? So the title's going to continue. This particular issue, we've got Christian Ward, Jeremy Adams, and more. Patrick Reynolds, Laura Braga, and more on art. So, yeah, continues to be an anthology. Don't really need to say much more than that. Mark Waid is also continuing to write Batman, Superman, World's Finest. We're up to issue number 32. Adrian Gutierrez is taking over the art duties. Anybody who's been following the spotlights we do every week on Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! Over on Twitter to find it and subscribe. I haven't been the biggest fan. I liked his art on the first arc of Blue Beetle more than the second arc. He started doing that whole ink splatter thing, which I don't really enjoy. It's going to be a bit of a transition because we're going from Dan Mora, very clean, traditional superhero art, to Adrian Gutierrez, whose art is much more textured. Not that he's a bad artist. He's got very strong storytelling instincts. Transitions from panel to panel are very, very good. Again, it's just not as clean as I would like. So that's a subjective thing. But as long as Mark Waid's writing it, it's going to feel timeless and classic. And I don't see any reason for that to stop. So not sure who the villain is going to be, but it sounds like the new Justice League is going to be showing up in this issue, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. Batman Brave and the Bold continues to be a series that I don't think should exist, because I think it's the one that has completely betrayed its classic premise of having in my mind, it's just although I will say that Jeremy Adams did tweet out, he's asked people, he's been advertising his story in Batman Brave and the Bold 18. He's talked about it. He's hoping people will pick it up. So because I love Jeremy, this will be the one issue that I will pick up and we'll be reading it anyway. But in any event, look, these are classic DC titles, and they're putting them out. And Mark Waid on Bat World's Finest is, that continues to sell well for. In many ways, it's Mark Waid. Mark Waid started all this, and I think in many ways Mark Waid's responsible to where this is all led. I think his work and him and Dan Moore's work on World's Finest, I think, was in many ways the beginning of a new revitalization of what's brought us here, in my mind.
Yeah, 100%. Same creative team on Power Girl. Leah Williams doing the writing, Adriano Mello handling the art. They continue to try to differentiate Power Girl from Supergirl. In my opinion, it hasn't worked yet. I wish they would just let Leah Williams just write classic Power Girl stories instead of, whatever they're trying to do, making her different. But I don't know. We'll see. The art has been up and down, but Adriana Melo's a fantastic artist, so I expect sort of more of the same. I will say that the Mercado variant, the Miguel Mercado variant that you can see there, looks pretty cool. And the other variant by Simone DeMeo looks like she's showing off quite a bit of her butt. I don't know what else to say. And then Shazam, again, same creative team, Josie Campbell, Emanuela Lupacchino. I think Josie's done a great job. A little bit of a rough transition from Mark Waid handing it off to her trying to finish up the stories, plot threads that Mark had going on, but I think she's a very talented writer, and she does share one thing with Mark Waid, and that's the ability to kind of write for all ages and make it accessible for young readers. And she continues to do that. So I expect both these titles to feel the same as they have felt, despite the fact they're starting new arcs. But unfortunately, they've been averaged, maybe, haven't been the strongest. So maybe with these new arcs, they'll get re-energized, and we'll get some fantastic new stories. We'll have to wait and see. Anything to add?
Yeah, just that I wish Power Girl is just Power Girl is supposed to be more exciting than this. She's too boring. She's got to get rid of her boring roommate Omen. She's frankly she needs to have a little bit. She needs to be more exciting. She needs to be a little bit. She needs to have more of an edge. She doesn't have it. She doesn't have that. What the hell is the point of a name change if there's not going to be a little bit of a character change associated with it? There wasn't. She's become more boring than she was.
Yeah,
and
that's
there was
the
a lot of
change.
potential.
Yeah,
That's the change. She's now boring. So she's boring. Let's call her Paige now instead of Karen. I mean, at least we all know what a Karen sounds like, right? At least the Karen's annoying. Where there's, better to be hated than forgotten about.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyway.
Batman Long Halloween, we know this is coming. Klaus Janson, Jeff Loeb. It's a sequel to Long Halloween, art from the late, great Tim Sale. So this cover is actually by Tim Sale. This is the second issue of it. And just recently they had, I think, the art for the covers for issues 7 through 10 were revealed as well. It's also never before seen Tim Sale art. So if you're a fan of Long Halloween, you're going to be picking this up. Again, it's written by Jeff Loeb, who wrote the Long Halloween. And, getting a chance to see some unpublished Tim Sale art. So that's a fantastic thing. Batman and Robin Year One, this was announced recently as well. Mark Waid, again, doing a lot of work over at DC these days. He's paired up with Chris Samnee. Chris Samnee did the covers, I think, for the Titans Year One that Mark Waid wrote. Now he's actually doing the interiors. This is the same creative team to critically acclaim. Got some Eisner nominations. I don't know if they won any, though, but for their Daredevil run over at Marvel. I can't think of anybody more classically suited to draw Year One stories than Chris Samnee. I put him up there with like Doc Shaner as well, who can just really do like this clean style art that harkens back to like a Silver Age or a Golden Age. And again, Mark Waid, he knows his DC history, so yeah, I'm excited for this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think of Mark Waid and Chris Samnee. I love their Daredevil run. That was fantastic, and I just like it's perfectly suited for the time period in which for a Year One story. And Mark Waid, I mean, I'm in whatever the story is. I'm in.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a couple pages of preview art here as well if you want to check it out. Poison Ivy, Swamp Thing, Feral Trees. This is the book Rocky was mentioning earlier, written by G. Willow Wilson, art by Mike Perkins. Jason Shawn Alexander on that main cover. We've got variant covers by Mike Perkins and Clayton Crane. This one's 48 pages. It's $6. It's on sale just in time for Halloween, October 30th. I mean, two great characters to team up for a Halloween story. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think when I think of Mike Perkins and Swamp Thing, I think of Ram V. Yeah. And Ram V's Swamp Thing run illustrated by Mike Perkins was very long-winded. It had a lot of exposition, but I liked it. It was one of those things where, and I don't always like, sometimes you have fantastic art, and sometimes too much exposition can take you out of the story. It was the opposite for me with the Van V Swamp Thing run. It was even, I think it was supposed to only be 12 issues. It was extended to 16 or something because people were just enjoying it, critical acclaim, and I really enjoyed it. And J. Willow Wilson does have a tendency toward exposition in her Poison Ivy run, and now she's working with Mike Perkins, combining it with Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy. And it involves the Parliament of Trees, recruiting, of course, Poison Ivy and Swamp Thing. And one of the things that's become more and more prevalent over the last 5 to 10 years is that Poison Ivy she's got a connection to that green as well. That connection has become more and more prominent, and it's played more of a role in various plots and various stories. And so I like that. So I think this is sort of a natural team up that I'm surprised we haven't seen it before. If Poison Ivy and Swamp Thing have teamed up before, somebody please remind me. I don't think they have. I think this is the first time that they formally teamed up in a comic book all their own, and to be illustrated by Mike Perkins, that's absolutely perfect. That's fantastic. And I think he does his own colors as well. Is that not, I believe?
Usually Mike Spicer colors his stuff.
Oh, that's right. So yeah, it doesn't say.
Yeah,
it doesn't say who the color.
Most of these solicits don't have the color artists, right. Which drives me crazy. But there we see some of the Kelly Jones Halloween variants. You can see the outline of a pumpkin. So if you're a Kelly Jones fan, look out for those. Hip video game explodes onto the page with an all-out invasion. This is Multiverses Collection Detection. There's a couple of them. I'm not familiar with the Multiverses game, but if you're so inclined, Brian Q. Miller, John Somnorevia doing the art. There's a couple of them here. We've got issue 2, issue 3, issue 4. So that's your thing. Great. But getting back to sort of the main DC titles, we have a DC Horror Presents. This sounds like it's basically an anthology for Halloween of horror stories. We have the Boulay brothers, David Dostamishian and Leah Kilpatrick as the writers, and it says art by various bone-crunching, worms-munching, blood-splattering. So yeah, just a Halloween anthology with a bunch of spooky stories. The one for last Halloween wasn't particularly good, if I recall. Crossing over DC and horror works to varying degrees. It certainly didn't work for Night Terrors, but if it's your thing, look out for that come October. I'm much more curious about this. DC Horror Presents Creature Commandos #1, because we know there's a Creature Commandos show, I think, coming from James Gunn. So this is also written by David Dastmalchian, Jesus Hervas on art, who I'm not the biggest fan of his art. It's sort of impressionistic. It's not super clean. But the Creature Commandos have a lot of potential. So I'm curious to see how this is gonna work.
Yeah, he's a David Dastmalchian. He played Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. American writer, actor, and producer. Okay, that's what a interesting choice. Although I suppose we shouldn't be surprised because it's he knows James Gunn and Creature Commander and all that jazz. So it's not surprising. It's going to be interesting to see how this is, because frankly the track record for screenwriters or Hollywood, anything to come over to try to write comic books has, generally speaking, not been particularly good.
But better at DC than others.
Well, maybe.
You're right.
I don't know.
I can say, so Bruce Campbell, when he did the Sergeant Rock,
that was okay.
Was good.
That's right.
The guy, I can't remember his name right. The guy that played the Riddler in the latest Batman movie. Remember he wrote the Riddler Year One?
Oh, yeah, Paul
Dano. Yeah.
Paul Dano, right.
And while I wasn't a huge fan of that series because of the version of the Riddler, I just didn't care for that version of the Riddler, he did a fantastic job. It was still an interesting series, and he was very true to the character. It was true to the character of the Riddler that he played. And then also, we both really, really loved Michael Dorn when he did the Steel series.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. All right, okay, you've convinced me. All right, you've given me more hope.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean this is going to be good, but I would say it's like when DC allowed, and Nicole Maines has been killing it. So I will say that yes, you're right in general.
Now you're making me feel stupid.
No, because you are right. A lot of other publishers they get people to do it. It's a publicity stunt, right? Just to sell the books, and they're not very good because the person, the actor, the celebrity, whatever, is not a writer, and they sort of phone it in because they know it's going to get good sales because of the name recognition. DC hasn't done that, to their credit. And those 4 that I've mentioned, they were all, they all to varying degrees did a pretty good job with their stories. With probably Nicole Means being the best. Who I'm going to get a chance to sit down with Nicole at San Diego. I haven't talked to her since the last time I had her on the show, and then I haven't seen her since last San Diego. So I'm really excited because last time when I talked to her, her stuff had been announced, but she hadn't actually had any of her writing come out. And now, not only has she had the Dreamer stuff come out, she's had other stuff in the DC, main continuity come out. So I'm super excited to see her talk about the success of everything that's been going on. And we know she has an Absolute Power Super Sons book that's coming out that ties in. So yeah, really excited for that. Okay, Elseworlds. Again, these have been announced before. Green Lantern Dark, written by Tate Bromwell. Werther Del Edra, art and cover. Tate Bromwell, somebody who's sort of an understudy, I guess you'd say, of James Tynion. Werther Del Edra, people will know that name from Something is Killing the Children. The Elseworlds titles that we've had so far have definitely felt like Elseworlds. They felt outside of main DC continuity. To varying degrees, we've liked them. And this Green Lantern Dark sounds interesting. Post-apocalyptic Earth, overrun by monsters, battle between good and evil. I'm sort of surprised. This is sort of one of those obvious ideas. Why haven't somebody done this before, right? The juxtaposition of monsters and an Earth where everything is dark. Who would be a champion for an Earth like that? Well, somebody who wields light as a weapon, right? A Green Lantern. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited for this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I love Something is Killing the Children. And Tate Bromwell, I didn't realize I've been reading House of Slaughter.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I never really made the connection until I read it in the Solicit.
Yeah.
And so, hey, man, it's a good combination. And this is, isn't it interesting how in the old days, it always seemed in the old days, like 5-10 years ago, it seemed like you'd work at the big 2 and then you do some high-powered indie work, and now it's like now you do a super successful indie work like Something's Killing the Children, House of Slaughter, and then for DC to pick up a creative team and to pull them over to attract them to Green Lantern Dark, I think it's a really nice fit. And Belladera's art is just perfect for this, for the ambiance and the tone of what Green Lantern Dark is, for what that's about. So I'm looking forward to that. That and the Kryptonian Age. I've been enjoying the Kryptonian Age, and this Green Lantern Dark definitely.
Yeah, you can see some preview pages there, and then we've got the Kryptonian Age issue 5, which, I mean, look at that cover from Leandro Fernandez. I mean, we've had 2 issues so far. It's been first issue I was sort of on the fence. Second issue I thought it really pulled me in. Luthor's schemes revealed. We've got Superman there with the smile, and clearly he's the sheriff in town, and he's got a trench coat instead of a cape. I mean, it looks fantastic. It'll be continuing as well. And then a couple of other titles we just read: Dark Knights of Steel All Winter last week, so that's continuing. Obviously, same creative team. DC versus Vampires World War V #3 again. Matthew Rosenberg, Tyler Boss, same people that we had work on it before when it wasn't under the Elseworlds banner because they hadn't officially revived that. But it makes sense, I mean, if you read DC versus Vampires and saw your vampiric Hal Jordan blend up Zan from the Wonder Twins, that's not main continuity. The heroes lose in that series, and they lose big. James Tynion and Matthew Rosenberg came up with it together. Obviously, Tynion's moved on, but Matthew Rosenberg keeping it alive. So, if you are so inclined, then we've got this is under Black Label, which is interesting to me because it's almost at this point. Black Label and Elseworlds are almost the same. I mean, originally they said Black Label more mature, but we've seen very immature Black Label stuff. It's like just call it all Elseworlds at this point and move on with our lives. But anyway. This idea of Batman versus werewolves, basically, written by Rodney Barnes, Stefan Subic is the artist, Mike Perkins doing a 1 in 25 variant. This just leans into the whole idea of okay, it's Black Label, so it can be out of continuity, and Ronnie Barnes has a little more freedom to tell the story he wants to tell. But again, DC really overexposing Batman is what I'll say. As cool as that cover is, and as cool as, you know, Batman versus Werewolf sounds, God, they put out a lot of Batman stuff. So
yeah,
I really do like that logo though, like full moon. It looks like they look like fangs. Yeah, great job on the logo. Anything to add to that?
Not really. I just think we're always, that's a staple for any new venture by DC. We always get a little bit too much Batman, and this is just, I mean, it might be a really great story. I mean, there's always some great Batman stories. That's the nature of the character. He just inspires writers to often do their best. But no buts. We'll see. I mean, werewolves, Batman. It's been done before, but maybe Rodney Barnes will give us a unique, fresh take on it.
Yeah, I mean, he has had multiple nominations for his Philadelphia series, which is, you know, on the vampire side. Now he's bringing, you know, his experience writing horror, you know, to DC, not vampires this time, werewolves, but a chance to do Batman. It is October, you know, Halloween, all that stuff. So, you know, it makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And you can see some art there on those pages. Nice House by the Sea, issue number 1, absolutely fantastic. I don't think we've talked about it yet because it hasn't come out, but, you know, I read our preview copy or whatever, and I mean, Nice House on the Lake was amazing. Nice House by the Sea, first issue, even better, so great. James Tynion, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, who was his collaborator on Nice House by the Lake. So this issue 4, glad he's continuing it. Super excited for it to be out there in the world and to read more of it myself. And then Christopher Cantwell, we mentioned this just recently when we did the DC All-In video. You mentioned maybe Plastic Man as an absolute, and I talked about, well, there is sort of a David Cronenberg body horror Plastic Man story coming. This is it, written by Christopher Cantwell. Alex Linz is the artist. Yeah, I mean, just look at it. Justice League won't listen to him. His wife and kids want nothing to do with him. Plastic Man doesn't need a single one of them to pull off his grand plan to cheat death. And it all starts with kidnapping the Metal Men. It's for a good cause, he swears. I'm just a huge fan of Christopher Cantwell. I think the guy's brilliant. I love his work in television, and I love his work in comics. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Definitely all in on Plastic Man. And I like Plastic Man. Plastic Man's a favorite character of mine. All the way back from I think it was 1979, the Plastic Man Adventure Hour cartoon, which I have on DVD. Way more wacky than you might think that I might enjoy, but you know, at the time I wasn't even 10 years old, and I loved it. I've loved Plastic Man ever since. Trying to remember, he had his blonde girlfriend, and then he had his Hawaiian sidekick that always wore the Hawaiian shirt. Can't remember their names, but yeah, I'm a big Plastic Man fan, big fan of Christopher Cantwell, so super excited. Any thoughts on these two books?
Nice House by the Sea. I've also read the preview copy, and I've read James Tynion's newsletter on his commentary on the concept of Nice House by the Sea as a continuation of Nice House on the Lake, and it's just it's a fantastic continuation, a fantastic sequel. The concepts, how it's being expanded, that world, that mythology is being built upon. If anybody hasn't read Nice House by the Lake, by all means pick up the trade. It's well worth it. It's easily one of my favorite 12 issues that I've read in the last 10 years, my top 10 easy in the last 10 years. I absolutely love it. And I'm so looking forward to Nice House by the Sea getting that first issue coming out formally and what have you. And Plastic Man, I'm going to be picking up Plastic Man because I just loved it. I love the concept of a darker take on Plastic Man, and Cantwell is someone who has he's been a little hit and miss with me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. His Briar has been a little bit disappointing, but the final issue is coming up. I'm hoping he nails the landing on that. Yeah, so we'll see.
Jenny Sparks, number 3. Haven't read the first issue of this yet, but it's Tom King, Jeff Spokes, who's a fantastic artist with very clean, understated style that I love. And Jenny Sparks is interesting to me, so if anybody can really give us an interesting Jenny Sparks story, it's probably Tom King, so excited about that. And I like the first issue of Zatanna, Bring Down the House from Mariko Tamaki and Javier Rodriguez. So those will both continue as well. Anything to add to those, Rocky?
Just that I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see Tom King's version of Jenny Sparks. Of all the characters that Tom King would pick to write, Jenny Sparks would not have been one that I would have thought he'd have been interested in writing. So I'm really curious to see how he approaches this character, who is supposed to be dead, by the way. And I know Tom King and continuity don't play together very well, but I'm really curious. I'm wondering what DC editorial was thinking, why they thought this would be an interesting story to put forward. But it kind of sounds interesting when I've read all the solicits. So, I generally enjoy most of what Tom King writes. So we'll have to wait and see. So I'm optimistic on that. And as for Zatanna, I actually, the first issue of Zatanna, I was pleasantly surprised by. And Mariko Tamaki, if she brings that level of interest, facilitates that kind of interest as she for Supergirl, as I find in her Zatanna, I'll be even more inclined to enjoy Action Comics.
Yeah, and I'll say Tom King, he tends to have this effect on artists he works with, where then they like Mitch Garrett's now, him and Mitch, what's their next project? Clay Mann, Greg Smallwood now, Doc Shaner. So it's like, is he putting Jeff Spokes in his stable of artists? Because Spokes is fantastic and he doesn't do enough work, in my opinion. So it'd be fantastic to see a collaboration, a years-long collaboration between the two of them with 3 or 4 fantastic series. John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America #10, final issue of the series. Aaron Campbell on art, Simon Spurrier, talked earlier about how fantastic the series is. I wish it was an ongoing. Well, I should say I wish there was a monthly Constantine comic coming out with Cy Spurrier as the writer. Doesn't necessarily have to be this. This is supposedly Black Label out of continuity because Constantine's dead or what have you. But to me, this is the type of story that Cy Spurrier excels at. It's the type of stories he should be writing, the type of characters he should be writing. So anything to add to that, Rocky?
Not really. I've been, like I said, like you, I've been generally enjoying his Dead in America, and just the concept's kind of cool. I mean, it's interesting that it actually provided some clarity, because I was wondering what the actual premise of the series was. I know that there was this Sans gone missing, but it's the way it's explained here that the triplicate entity is eating the American subconscious alive, and it's like I never thought of it that way. But yeah, I guess that is what's happening. Because all the events of all the stories take place at a certain part of Americana along the highway as they're traveling, and I really like what Cy Spurrier is doing with this series. Unlike his Flash, he more than makes up for it with Hellblazer.
Yeah, 100%. My Adventures of Superman #5, again, same creative team, obviously, continuing that story. From the DC Vault, Death in the Family, Robin Lives #4. Again, same creative team, James DeMatteis, Rick Leonardi. I mean, these are limited series that are doing a specific thing, so they're going to continue. Mixed reviews on that Death in the Family, Robin Lives. I mean, James DeMatteis is a fantastic writer, and jury's out. I haven't made up my mind on that series yet, so we'll see. Then we've got the facsimile editions that are coming out. These have become a staple for DC. So we've got Batman 237, which Night of the Reaper, I guess it's the first appearance of the Reaper. And then we've got Crisis on Infinite Earths #7, obviously a very classic cover that's been homaged countless times. Hawkman #4, and then Sandman, the complete Shakespeare collection. Batman's Scooby-Doo Mysteries, Scooby-Doo Where Are You, Teen Titans Go. We have Batman Silent Night, which is interesting that it's being solicited here, but it doesn't come out until the end of November, just in time for Christmas. That is reprinting that Batman Santa Claus Silent Night story. Red Hood and the Outlaws Volume 3, and then various other volumes of collected editions. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a really interesting October leading into the end of the year for DC. Like I mentioned, I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con. I'll get a lot more information. I'm going to have interviews. I'll be covering a couple panels, so be sure that you're following the Comic Source on social media. I'll be live tweeting during the panel, showing you pictures that they put up on the big screen there. It'll be your first chance to see art that's being released from these books. And there's every possibility they're going to announce the second wave of Absolute titles. I mean, only 3 so far from the Absolute universe, so we'll have to see. So I'm pretty excited. I mean, I already, after listening to Josh and Scott talk about the announcement, I already, it had me more excited than when I first heard, okay, there's going to be an Absolute universe. I didn't know that it was this all-in initiative and everything was getting a big shakeup as far as the main universe as well. That gave me more hope. And then seeing these solicits, like Rocky was saying, with new talent coming in, some of it veteran talent, guys like Pete Woods. Yeah, things are looking up for DC. And again, I already think that, just look at the Eisner nominations. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Way more nominations for DC than Marvel. I think they're doing a better job of storytelling. It's unfortunate that the sales don't reflect that. You just have people that just blindly buy Marvel, even though and I'm not saying everything at Marvel is bad. They've got some fantastic books. But in general, I think the quality of DC books is higher. So, any last thoughts, Rocky?
So much to look forward to, and I will say I'm looking forward to see how Absolute Power plays out over the summer. I've been enjoying the summer, and I'm enjoying comics in general. I mean, it's a great time to be collecting comics, not just DC, and but it's really great. They say when you have a strong big two, because we've all kind of been complaining about a weaker big two, but the indies have sort of saved us, because the Energon universe and Image and what have you and Dark Horse. I got so many awesome indie comics I'm reading, and part of me, it's frustrating, but it just means I'm going to have to really look at my budget in October. Damn you, DC! But it's what it is. It's a first world problem, but it's a good one to have.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. Don't forget to head over to Rocky's channel, where we do the DC Spotlights every week. Comic Space Boom ! Once you're there, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you know when new stuff comes out. Comment below, let us know what you think. Appreciate you listening. If you're listening to the audio-only version of this and you want to subscribe to the Comic Source on YouTube, just go to YouTube, do a search for the Comic Source. You'll find us where all the interviews go up. Little specials like this, Spawn Daily, all that stuff is over there. And conversely, if you did stumble upon us on YouTube, there is over 2,000 previous audio-only episodes on the Comic Source podcast feed. So just go to whatever platform or app you use to listen to your podcast, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. But typically going forward, everything for the Comic Source will be both on YouTube and the audio feed. So hope to see you in San Diego Comic-Con. If you're going to be there and you run into me, be sure and say hi. I may not have time to stop and chat because, oh my God, my schedule is insane. Busiest I say this every year, but man, I just get busier and busier every year, which is a good problem to have. Talk about first world problems. Everybody wants me to talk to them. Everybody wants me to cover their stuff. So it's great to be wanted. But yeah, I'm going to be crazy busy. So, but if you do see me, say hi. Always love to interact with listeners. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. So thanks for joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.